You know, we've all heard of Anne Frank's diary. It's one of the most powerful books ever written. But what about the story behind the story? Today we're looking at the man who brought it to the world, her father, Otto Frank. This is a story about a father's unimaginable grief, a profound discovery, and the solemn duty he felt to keep his daughter's voice alive.
Just let that sink in for a moment. This quote perfectly captures the world Otto Frank came back to. Imagine being that person. You've survived the unimaginable, and you return home only to find you're walking through the ashes of your own life. This is where it all begins. Okay, so picture this. Otto Frank is back in Amsterdam, but the city he knew, the life he had built, it's just gone. Of everyone who hid in the secret annex, he is the only one who survived. Every street, every canal is now a painful reminder of what he lost.
And what's the first thing he does? The only thing a father could do. He starts searching for his daughters, Anne and Margot. He went to every relief agency, he talked to anyone he could find, just desperately clinging to any tiny sliver of hope that they might still be out there.
And this just shows you the agony of that search. It wasn't one single piece of bad news. It was this slow, grinding process. He's asking survivors from one camp, then the next. And with each conversation, with each person who shook their head, that little light of hope just got dimmer and dimmer. The horrible truth was slowly coming into focus.
And then it came. The final, crushing confirmation. Anne and Margot had died at Bergen-Belsen just weeks before the camp was liberated. The source material says it so powerfully, something inside him collapsed. The man who had spent 2 years doing everything he could to protect his family was now completely and utterly alone.
But right there, in the middle of that unbelievable grief, something happened. Something that would change not only his life, but the entire world. From the ashes of his old life, a new purpose was about to emerge.
Meet Guise, one of the courageous people who risked her own life to help hide the Frank family. She came to him. She'd been saving something, keeping it safe, waiting for this moment. And she placed in his hands
A stack of papers. Just a diary, some notebooks, a bunch of loose pages. It was everything she had found scattered on the floor of the annex after the arrest. She had kept it all, hidden in her desk, waiting to give it back to Anne.
You have to understand, what he was holding wasn't just ink on paper. This was his daughter. It was her diary. It was her words, her soul. It was her relentless, vibrant, stubborn voice, miraculously saved from the wreckage, now resting in his hands.
So for Otto, sitting down to read this wasn't about finding out what happened in the annex. He was there. He knew. No, this was a reunion. This was the only way he could meet his daughter again.
Can you just picture him, sitting alone in a room for days, just completely lost in her world? He's reading her innermost thoughts, and he's on this intense emotional roller coaster. One moment, he's probably smiling at her wit, and the next, he's just breaking down, crushed by the weight of the future she never got to have.
And here's the thing that must have been so staggering for him. He was discovering a daughter he never fully knew. See, he knew the child he protected, but on these pages, he was meeting the young woman she was becoming. Sharper, wiser, a little rebellious, and somehow incredibly hopeful.
The diary gave him this impossible gift. It was a window into her uncensored soul, her ambitions, her frustrations, her brilliant mind just firing on all cylinders. He was truly meeting her all over again.
And this discovery, it transformed his grief. It didn't take it away, of course not, but it gave it a direction. He realized he was now the keeper of this incredible voice. He had a responsibility.
So why publish it? I mean, it's a huge decision to share something so deeply personal. But for Otto, this wasn't an act of ambition, not at all. It was an act of profound grief, of a father's love, and ultimately, it was an act of duty.
His thinking behind it was so powerful. He believed the world needed to hear Anne's voice, not to pity her as a victim, but to meet her as the vibrant, intelligent, funny, and deeply human person who was so incredibly alive on the page. That was her real legacy.
And that became his mission for the rest of his life. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was her ambassador. He oversaw the publication of the diary, he helped establish the Anne Frank House, and he personally answered thousands and thousands of letters from people all over the world.
So what's the ultimate impact of that decision? It's about building something permanent out of the rubble. It's about building a bridge so that her voice would never, ever be silenced.
Because the diary is so much more than just a historical document or a testimony of what happened. It really does function as a bridge.
connecting things that would otherwise be forever lost to time.
And think about what that bridge connects. On one side, you have all the destructive forces that took her world away: prejudice, war, hatred. And on the other side, you have the timeless human values that her voice preserved: courage, truth, and this incredible, defiant hope.
Ultimately, it's a bridge between that lost world and all of us, right here in the present. Through her words, we can walk across that bridge and understand, on a deeply human level, what was lost and what we must never, ever forget.
And that leaves us with this final thought. What really is the weight of that responsibility? To carry the voice of your own child, a voice that came to represent millions, and to make sure it is never silenced. That was the solemn duty of Otto Frank.